Can you hear us? Have their laptop so they can get into the.
Oh, I need, what's the Wi-Fi? Because I brought my laptop from work.
The Wi-Fi screen. Don't need to have that Wi-Fi. Yes.
Which is it? SLPS Mac? Which network? Is it ADM? Okay.
It's the dates.
Are you able to get in and out of there? Because those doors should be locked over there.
Thank you.
It's
Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, testing. Doing too much, I'm doing too much. Oh. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. That's the way I like it. My mind race is here today. Somebody talk to us. Oh, by the way, that was a great interview. That headline is garbage. SOPS interim superintendent defends me for new bus company. We gotta defend everything. It depends. What does that mean? Defend it. This doesn't make any sense. It's a great article, or it's a great interview. Good job. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the closest. Under.
I'll go on.
Is she? Okay. All right. We will call this meeting of the Governance Committee to order. It is Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025 at 12:14 in the afternoon. Ms. Vaughn, could you call the roll of the members, and then we'll also introduce the non-members who are participating from the staff.
Ms. Jones,
Present.
Ms. Hubbard, present. Mr. Davis,
Present.
have a quorum.
All right. We also have Dr. Boris Shade and Dr. Hubbard to help us with our governance committees today. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes. Everyone should have a copy of the minutes from both January 17th and January 24th. Could I get a motion to approve the January 17th and January 24th minutes? Been moved by Ms. Hubbard. Do I have a seconded by Ms. Jones? Are there any questions or discussion about the minutes from these two meetings? Seeing none, we'll take a vote by acclamation. All in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes have been approved. Thank you. Our next order of business is new board member onboarding. As we discussed in a previous meeting, we have the Board of Education approved an onboarding plan, and it's available on the website. So we go to SLPS website. Should be under Board of Education. We'll see who beats me to it. And go to the Board of Education tab. Go to, I think it's board elections. Thank you. It's in a strange place. So yeah, revised 9/26/2021. So once everybody gets to that, I really just kind of want to go through it and we can just take a look at it and see if we agree that this is still sufficient. Now, I did get information. The MSBA recently had an onboarding webinar. There's another one I think upcoming that they're doing with Education Plus. That one is actually costs $50. But I have the materials from the MSBA onboarding, and really it has just PowerPoints. Most of them were from Joplin, and their topics are pretty much our topics. So when we go through that, we can sort of, figure out who's going to be responsible for the various departments, and then we can, share that information so they can craft that. So our first one was pre-onboarding school board school. We actually did that this year for this election. And so Ms. Nolan helped me with that, along with MSBA helped us with that. We had a whole bunch of people from MSBA come for that. So we do have those materials. Ms. Nolan has those materials. So when that needs to be replicated, but we won't have an election for a while after April. This is education outreach after the filing deadline to all filed candidates. We have not done this. And mainly because I don't know. I don't know if we still think that this would be a good idea or not. We still have time if we wanted to. Honestly, all of that stuff was covered in the school board school, but questions, thoughts?
So what was the question?
Okay, so if we're going through this onboarding plan, the first one was school board school. So this is, we called a school board candidate workshop. So this is up before the, it was just 30 to 60 days prior to the first day of filing. So this was something we advertised to the public where people who are interested in either running for the school board or really, it's really a good thing for anybody who's interested in how the school board operates. It was on a Saturday. It was about half the day, right? And we went through those topics with people. They were able to ask questions. We got really good feedback from the people that attended. So that's just information to help people, consider and understand what they would be up for. We also had someone from the Board of Elections come that just, said, hey, here's the specifics of where you go, how you do this, and then more stuff like that. Now, when we talked about this in 2021, we were borrowing this from both MSBA and I think Kansas City. They suggested just putting somewhere in one place, basically, all of this information. And then since know who the people are running for election, just say, hey, here's a link if you need some information. So, this should be helpful. I think most of this is probably all somewhere on the website. It's just not at one spot. And then B and C was to have a meet and greet with the superintendent, and a meet and greet with board members whose seats are not up for election. I think let's see, did we suggest the timing? Yeah, there's no timing. So after they filed, you just have that as a possibility. It did, it,
Sorry, it feels like the time between filing and election
Yeah,
has been
they-
shortened a lot.
they changed the statute, so all municipal election, well, all municipal elections where you're not like at a charter form of government, so it did get shortened, so it was basically the month of December. I think it might have been late November and then it ended like New Year's Eve or something like that. So it was only 1 month. As opposed to, yeah, I think it used to be like a month and a half or two. It all kind of depended.
So that update is not on here.
This part, the education outreach after the filing deadline to all filed candidates, we have not done.
Okay.
But looking at the documents that we list there, I think probably that could be put together pretty easily.
We could just make a collection of links to all the different places where they are.
Pretty much. Thoughts? And then just send it? Or, I mean, we can table that for this year because,
Whenever we talk about that word table.
we postpone that for this year. Thank
Okay.
you. I said, remind me when we say the wrong word.
Right.
I mean, I guess I'm leaving this open and looking around at the people that work
It's
here, because how
unnecess-
difficult would this be? I don't want to add more work, but
we could work on having a deadline to get this done. And the deadline could be sometime in mid to late April.
yeah, so the election's April 8th.
Mhm.
So that would be after.
After, yes.
Okay, well, then this is supposed to be before the election. So as we continue on, all the same information is going to be part of the new member onboarding too.
Yes.
So,
So they had all this information available to them at the time of filling out that application, correct?
I mean, you could search for pretty much all of that stuff on our website. Yeah.
Right, but it didn't reflect the answers.
Oh, you're talking about the people that apply.
Yes. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know
another,
That they even understand that this was here
that's another topic. These are for people who are running for election.
running, okay. All right,
Yeah.
people who are- okay.
We can have this ready before April 8th. We could. Much of this stuff exists. I'm just looking at bullet 5 and bullet 6. But much of this stuff exists.
6. Yeah, board and committee meeting minutes, key presentations for past 12 months. Well, that's all up.
I mean, we can just go, we can link to Diligent, right? Or not, I don't know if it's all transferred.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so then we can have this ready.
And the board evaluation template, 2021, we had one and it's
Mhm.
changed 17 times. So that's
Mhm.
probably one that we should X out because that's a moving target.
So did you capture that, Ms. Vaughn? We would X out the board self-evaluation. But this is talking about a template. So the template.
Yeah, right. I mean, we have a
You have a
template.
template, okay.
We used a different template when we did it, but we have a template, yeah. That, if it's not on there, I have one that we literally voted on in 2020, I think. The other one is the board presentation calendar. I think that's still
we can
in the
have that.
works,
We can have that.
evolving.
Of what
Um,
has happened and what it looks like going forward.
Yeah,
Mark, it's a living document.
yeah. I mean, there's certain things that, pretty much usually generally happen, but yeah. Okay, And we haven't updated the A-bar plan since 2021, so I don't even know if that's still a thing.
Only heard that term used once in the list.
It's probably illegal now. So, okay,
So we will say that we will get this to you. We will do our best to get it at our next governance,
okay.
and that will
Yeah.
be the 21st or the 28th.
Um, Why don't we do the 28th?
Okay, we will have it all on the 28th.
And so we're doing this so that we can approve it in the month of April.
Well, this has already been approved.
Okay,
This was approved in 2021. It's just never been done.
updated.
Yeah, we never did it.
Okay.
And then we can push it out to the candidates.
Yeah, and we'll just, we can have Ms. Vaughn send an email like, hey, for our onboarding plan, you can find information about the district here. We've compiled this for you.
Be ready.
And then do we want to have a meet and greet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we can schedule a meet and greet too at the same time. When do we want to schedule the meet and greet? I mean, you don't have to do it. You can, whenever it works for you.
That would be after.
You want to do it after the 21st? So there's basically one more month that they're running.
Let's do it after the 21st. Let's pick a date. Though.
Okay.
Let's pick a date. Is it possible to do a meet and greet on March 11th?
It's President Cousins' birthday. It's on my calendar.
Okay,
Who put that there?
we won't do it on that day.
Well, okay, so it is for board members whose seats are not up for election.
Mhm.
So I don't know if President Cousins is included.
Okay, so let's,
I mean, we do all know her. If she, like, the meet and greet would really be to meet.
For the new candidates to come ask questions of other board
So
members.
he could do it and she could have her birthday.
I mean, that's not, I mean,
I was just doing it on the night of a board meeting, so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not an extra
Tuesdays
day.
are always my,
Yeah. Or do we want to do March 25th? That's a work session.
So March
probably
20th.
earlier than,
Okay.
probably earlier. Yeah. Let's do it on the 11th.
Okay,
Oh,
on the
Question.
11th.
Okay.
President Cousins, you are running again though, is that right? So we still want to exclude her from it?
Well, I mean, I think the point
Board might
was,
excuse her
she
from
does, there's no reason for her to come and meet board
team she
members.
already
We've
knows.
met her.
Right, okay.
Just,
You
She
know.
just won't be here for that portion of it. She'll be.
you're certainly welcome to come if you want to. So,
And that's a board,
I think I understand what
Right.
you're saying, but excuse me. I think I understand if I'm thinking what you're asking is, but me being a board member and you have the candidates that might want to do a
Meet you.
meet and greet with me, like asking me questions as being a current board member.
Mhm.
Is that's what you're asking? Yeah, I get that part.
So
I think we put that, I mean, we borrowed this from a lot of places and it says meet and greet with board members whose seats are not up for election.
And that's March 11th.
March 11th. And there's a board meeting that night, so we'll do it before the board meeting.
So we'll do it at 4 p.m.
Mhm.
here.
The 25th is not.
Right, we're gonna do it because that's just about a month before the election. All right, and then going through the onboarding calendar. There'll be an initial meeting, which we have done. And it'll be a sort of an orientation meeting. Where we, provide usually the same information that we would be on those links. It's a good, and then just kind of go over, the nuts and bolts. So it's prior to being sworn in, so I'll still be on the board, so I'm happy to conduct that along with Ms. Vaughn. Because there'll be, we'll want to do the introduction to Diligent Community, and then, setting them up for getting the parking pass and all that sort of stuff.
So my question is about before the swearing in. This is what we're talking about, right?
Right.
So it seems to me that in certain situations that the board members that come in, they don't understand when you get sworn in, what it actually means. Because I noticed that
Oh, the oath.
the oath was different for me than someone else. Well, I know mine was different than some of the other board members. And I just wanted to know, we're gonna make sure everybody understands what that oath means.
Yeah, so the oath, since I've been here, it's really very poorly worded, but it's really just you're swearing by the terms of the statute. So you go through all of those things, like you don't have a contractor claim against the district, everything. So yeah, I think that's normally included. And then, we go over that, like this is what your oath is going to be. It's real clunky, I guess.
Right, and so do we understand that what happens when you violate the oath that you take, or is that it doesn't matter?
So if you are so the oath talks about statutory requirements. If you would violate a statutory requirement, there's another statute for removal of a board member for failing to abide by the requirements of the other statutes. I mean, we don't go over that, but we certainly go over those.
There's no legal anything else. I mean, other than what the full board might do if a board member violates their oath.
I mean, so generally what we'll introduce to them at this meeting are the norms and the bylaws, and particularly the statutes of, you've got to conduct your MSBA training. You have a year to successfully complete it, stuff like that.
So that's set point right at the very beginning.
Yes, that's how we've previously done it. And then also would provide them all the other information. When Tony and I did it, it was totally different. We were in this room, all the cabinet members, it was Saturday, the cabinet members came in, said hi, they left, they didn't say anything to us. We met with Dr. Adams for 20 minutes, and then he left, and then that was it. That was it. They gave us some, swag.
I don't know.
So I mean, I've been conducting onboarding to the best of my ability in this level of a session for the new board members that have come in, which has been 1, 2, 5 or 6. I don't know.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just really, this was important to me because it seems that a lot of times we have people who are running for the board who
Mhm.
might get elected,
Well,
who don't keep their oath, and we don't have any legal recourse when they go stand before a judge and say certain things and don't.
will you come with me and do this with me?
Do it.
The onboarding.
Sure.
The initial onboarding meeting, which is just sort of introduction to the one that you do before you're being sworn in. We'll work on that together.
Okay.
And then there'll be a swearing in. The timing of that should work out, but there is sometimes delays in the certification of the election, so that'll have to be kind of monitored. I think I won by like 14 votes, so it took an extra couple weeks. And then here's sort of the schedule that we had approved just sort of generically. It says the governance committee will work with the board president and superintendent to ensure the appropriate administrative staff present about district operations at board on boarding sessions, and this is timed out, so it's one per month for 4 months. So it's budget, transformation plan, state board requirements. This is session 1, sessions 2, again, pillars of the transformation plan. Session 3, yeah, and it goes on to the other pillars. And then session 4 was legislation and advocacy, overview of superintendent evaluation, and follow up for earlier sessions. And then we had envisioned after the first 4 months, there would be a board retreat. Whoever you want. Yeah, I mean, there's never been a formula for board retreats. So, I mean, I think that, you know, whatever, and I don't think that there's a particular topic. I mean, you know, there's always stuff to work on, right? And that's something too, I think, you know, if you work on that with the governance committee, you can kind of flesh out like, okay, seeing, you know, where everybody is now, where the district is, what the needs of these new board members are in terms of, you know, everybody. I mean, sometimes it is just like, especially if you're going to have so many new board members, a little bit of like, you know, getting to know each other, icebreakers, which I am not usually a big fan of, may actually be good. I know we had one because our election was slightly, there were contentious issues. We kind of spent, you know, an hour clearing the air.
Is there a budget for this?
I don't know.
That's a great question. Let's figure it out.
Like for the retreat,
Yes. The Board of Education,
there's a
Us
Board of
does have-
Education budget, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, honestly. I mean, the Board of Education budget is like 90% considered office supplies. And then like, you know, I think our travel budget was technically like $2,500.
So the budget can be structured
Right,
how,
it needs to
yeah.
be structured.
so we can make sure that that is structured to include an annual board retreat.
That would be great.
We'll make that happen.
Okay, so are there any questions about this? I mean, and you know, if there's a different way to structure these, but I think just in general, and again, I'll forward everybody the Joplin model, which is sort of similar to this. And it shows like their slides for each, and it sort of gives you an idea, okay, this is all you need to do.
So I think I want to ask a question about the training that's required by board members. I know we said once a year, the MSBA, that kind of thing, but clearly if you're a new board member, you're going to need lots of training and lots of exposure to other board members. That's why we went to a lot of these meetings and conventions, so we can learn, because they need that training and experience of other board members across the country.
So it's probably been a while since you probably, I don't even know if you had to do the big one, but all new board members have to do 18 and a half hours of MSBA training within their first year. So it's half of it is just like training modules where there's videos and you got to take a test. And then the other one is like a day-long in-person session where you have to go to Columbia. Sometimes they'll have one in St. Louis. It's always offered in conjunction with their twice, their summer session and then their November annual meeting. So like the day before, they'll have that training for new board members. So you can go to the conference and fulfill those requirements. And then of course we have to do the annuals at 1 hour, 2 hours of the continual training once you've taken after your first year. But I mean, to
The
your point,
refresher training.
you know, we had in the past, if you remember, I mean, I remember the most productive ones is when they had the MSBA summer session in St. Charles,
Mhm.
and we served that as our retreat. So we went to the meeting, we spent all day at the meeting, and then in the evening, we had dinner, and everybody went around and said, this is what I learned today, what are we gonna do with it? And then, you know, we followed that up in the board action. I mean, that was really productive, especially when everybody was together with the superintendent. And you go to these conferences and a lot of times it is the whole board with the superintendent, you know, and so you do come back and then you say, hey, I went to this meeting about MSIP 6. I went to this meeting about, you know, APR. I went to this meeting about school safety. And then everybody came together, brought their handouts and said, hey, we do this better than them. Hey, maybe we should look at this. I mean, that's
Right. I
my choice, but
understand.
everybody kind of has to come together and agree that that's what we're gonna do. Someone needs to pick up that ball and everybody goes.
Right, yeah, it's just really necessary that all board members go to these conferences and.
Yeah,
learn.
I wish that they weren't in Branson and Kansas City. I wish that they were, that St. Charles was perfect.
Mhm.
But I think it's a difference in going to the conference and actually being present, you know, gaining the insight, the knowledge, what Vice President Davis is saying. It means a lot that you go, you get an understanding of what's going on and you bring that information back and say, okay, based on what I've learned, this is what, like he's saying, we can implement, or let's talk amongst each other. This is what I've gotten out of that. How do we implement that, you know, to fit the district, or how do we bring that back to the superintendent to say, you know, this is what I've saw, this is what I've gotten from this conference. Based on what we've gotten, how do we make this a fit for, you know, how we can move the district in a different direction?
And in my opinion, just over the last 4 years, it works best if the superintendent takes the lead on that.
Right.
Hey, guys, here's an opportunity. Let's all do this.
Mhm.
Because that is sort of that governance core model of, you know, we're following your direction.
Mhm.
You know, bring us along with you.
I appreciate that.
All right. Okay, so we don't, so we've got the initial stuff taken care of and we've gone through the other things, and so we'll move on. Next one is board meeting agenda. So I think everybody has a copy of this, and then it's also in diligence. So I think what we need to do is take this and insert it into what Ms. Hubbard did to form an actual policy, correct? This. So what we have, because this is sort of the order of the meeting, but then or did you do, no, because there's language.
Well, what we did was we took what was approved at our board meeting on February 11th, and we have now uploaded it into diligence for our March board meeting. So you'll see in diligence, when you go to March, when you go to March 11th, and you open it up,
That's
it
how you got
now,
it.
it now reflects, if you go down, it now reflects what was approved here.
Perfect. Got it.
So now what next steps?
So I think just to go along with this, and this kind of is part of the bylaw revision, we need to put this into the bylaw, which is going to be what we took for our existing it's what, help me out. I mean, What?
I think this is sort of what the bullet points under consent agenda do sort of summarize our policy. So maybe we still need to vote on the consent agenda policy, but I think this summarizes it.
Well, I was wondering because in what you did, it had kind of an outline of this, but then this came up with the more detail. And I didn't know if we just wanted to sub out the outline of that policy with this detail part, you know what I'm saying? So we can cut and paste and then approve the changes to that bylaw. Because that bylaw is the MSBA consent agenda and it just explains in plain language, how is a consent agenda supposed to work and why are we doing it? And I don't think that we as a board, our policy currently reflects why we're doing it and how we're doing it. And I certainly don't think the public understands it. So that adds clarity. So I think this is great for the March meeting. I don't think that that needs to have a bylaw change. I think that between the governance committee and our current bylaw, that, you know, the board president and the superintendent come up with the structure of an agenda for the meeting. I think though, if we just want to commemorate this into policy, that would be a need to change that bylaw. And we don't have to do that today because that's not ready. But if we take what Ms. Hubbard did, throw this in there, we can come back later and then, you know, include that in the changes to the bylaws. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What's the difference?
What do you mean is the difference?
I'm saying what, are we saying to move to approve this draft of the new agenda? Okay.
As the structure of the meeting, I'm saying this isn't reflected in the
one
bylaws,
that is the agenda bylaw.
right? I mean, this is permissible under the current bylaws. We were just looking
Get a
to
copy of
adopt.
the- I'm sorry, I didn't get a copy of the bylaws. But I think I'm gathering what you're saying. You're
It's
saying,
one, it was one particular one that we talked about at the last meeting. And so we were taking,
I just shared the link with you.
oh, here it is. I pulled it up. So you sent to me, you sent to Ms. Vaughn. She can
Oh,
print it.
What's your email address? You guys can actually, if I pull it.
Okay, well, let's, we'll come back to this, okay? So if you get that, if you can print that out, we'll come back to this when we have copies. The next one is kind of along the same line, though. And I don't think we'll be able to really take action on this today, but we need to sort of come up with a plan of attack on this, and this is the bylaw revisions. I did send out to everybody previously the work that we had done before in the governance committee with MSBA. They had really gone through and evaluated all of the bylaw policies and then made some corrections that they thought should be made. I actually think we need to dig in a little further to those, because what they were doing was just taking ours and trying to fix them, and did not make the recommendations that instead of fixing them, just adopt an MSBA policy in its place that was already written better. And so I don't know how we want to approach that. I've done some of that work. And I mean, I think I probably could just prepare, get a packet together for everyone with my recommendations. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to go through, or even has an interest in going through all of their suggested changes. And again, this was done by the governance committee a couple of years ago, and then it just stopped.
So that's what I was gonna ask you. Are you saying the bylaws that, the revisions that we had did 2 years ago?
Uh-huh.
So were we picking up from where we left off in
Yes.
regards to that? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're trying to see where do we kind of pick up from where we left off on starting, because we had started doing a lot of revisions.
We
in those
did, and we've
bylaws.
never really adopted
Did
it.
it?
And
Okay.
there's not really I don't think that the committee even really ever passed anything out of it, because we just stopped. So,
Okay, when the board, two of the board members quit,
yeah,
we were going through that, okay.
right.
Okay, so you're basically saying we probably need to see what's been revised, kind of look at that, and then look at what MSBA bylaws are.
Yeah, so I think that in some instances, just looking at their model policy bylaw is gonna be, so for example, there was one of them where they recommended suggesting our bylaws 9350, 9352, 9353, 9356, 9357, 9358.1 into one bylaw.
Okay.
Well, they have one that
that
covers
matches
all that.
Okay,
Yeah, BPA.
okay,
The other two big ones that I thought, well, they talked about the organization. They've got one that's pretty clear. The board vacancy one, we actually already adopted BBE.
mhm,
So that took care of that. There's a couple of them where I think their changes are perfect, because those are probably ones where statutory
mhm,
changes were done. There's a B9120, which talked about officer elections, which was updated in before it, and they didn't have any changes. I think that one works.
okay,
They commented that our committee bylaws 9130 and 9140 were a disaster, and I agree. But they have policy BCE, which would cover both of those, and was just much cleaner.
okay,
And then the one that I felt very strongly about, and you get this especially when you get to the officer elections, is RB 9200, which is the officer positions.
mhm,
They kind of agree that it was sort of a mess. They have a policy BCB that has president and vice president duties, which are sort of consistent across all of the statutes, which was much cleaner. Now, they don't include a board secretary in that officer position, because a board secretary as an officer position is kind of unique to our district. Now, they have another policy that talks about board secretary and board treasurer. We don't have a board treasurer position, other school districts do. So we got to work on the secretary description, which there is a sort of I think what's in our 9200 kind of tracks the statute. And then 9200 also then includes legal assistance, which they have a separate policy for the board use of legal, which I think is better to, I don't know why that's in the officer policy. There was a separate one of that. So I think we would take the legal out, do that, and then it talks about assistance, and the MSBA's comment was, I don't know why this in there doesn't make any sense. So if we go through, I mean, it's just time
That's what I was
consuming.
going to say. So are you gonna pick a time for the governance committee to actually look at the two groups of bylaws
Yeah,
and kind of cross-check and see
And-
which, like you saying, which one needs to be combined? and
Right.
do- And then from that, once that's done, then it'll go before the whole board for approval.
yes.
Okay.
And like I said, I've started on it. And
But
so I
you
think I
can't-
can
it
put it all
can't just be
together in
you,
a
though.
coherent, I can work with Ms. Vaughn and we can put it all together like, okay, this, so you can see it all together.
Yeah, but it can't just be you. I remember in the past, what we did was we had broke it up. I think it was me and the other board member, like we broke up
Right.
sections of it and said, okay, you can cover this. Like you said, go through it, kind of update or do whatever, and then bring it back before the committee.
Okay, well, what if I do that? What if I take this list and then give everybody a couple?
To kind of go through and then you can bring it back. I mean, because I don't think that's fair for one person to have to be dealing with that.
And I would say that this is more than an act of compliance. We all have to understand what the bylaws mean, their purpose, what it looks like in action.
And 110% I agree with you. And I think that's why going to, when applicable, the clear language of the MSBA policies really helps. Because they're just, so like, again, for example, where they're saying like, you've got 6 policies that say that you can put into one and it has a very code, because it's about, you need a quorum. Well, we got one for a quorum. We got one for public notice. They have one that just lists everything. So you read the one policy and you're like, okay, this is how meetings work.
No, I would say what Ms. Vaughn just distributed is the information that Board Member Hubbard worked on as it relates to the consent agenda. So that we would then take this information and insert what was approved at our board meeting on February 11th as the standing items. And this is the explanation of what goes into the consent agenda. So I just want to marry
Right.
all of this, what we just talked about
So where it
together.
says the agenda shall be as follows, if possible, where there's this list, we just put this in there.
Correct.
Okay.
This. Ms. Vaughn, we understand this. So when we go back to March 11th, format for standing items, then we would make sure that we follow where on page 2, in order to use time within the board meetings more effectively, the school board also utilizes a consent agenda whenever possible. And then explain this.
So, does anybody have any other questions about that? Do we know what the changes are we're gonna make to it, to this bylaw? So the only thing I think that we need to add,
I'm just trying to see what is the changes? Is there something different?
yeah, it would, go to,
Because what you provided us is what this draft is and what this agenda is.
yeah,
The difference is it says opening on this paper, and what was approved at the board meeting gives an explanation. So it just says opening over there, and then it talks about what goes in the opening. So it's just more detailed.
The old policy would be D9352, I think,
right, I think you're right.
methods of operation.
So are you saying that you want on the copy that we just received from Ms. Vaughn, we're going to insert the approved agenda as the bullets at the bottom. So it's going to be longer. It'll be a longer
No.
document.
This part, the bullets right here,
Will be
this
replaced
is
with
gonna
this.
replace that.
That's what I thought.
And that is consistent with what we, or response to what we saw in our management assessment. That our standing items, we need to identify what our standing items are. And so this then becomes our standing items, what was approved February 11th.
So currently, I mean, one of these I think that will replace, that's at least that's on our website, is B 9358.1, which was last revised in February 22 of 2000. 9358.1. That's methods of operations, meeting, order of business. And there's another one, construction of agenda, which just says a written agenda will be prepared at the direction of the president of the board in consultation with the superintendent of schools for each administrative, regular business, and special meeting of the board. So I think those are probably the two that this will talk about. And currently I don't think in any of these bylaws, we talk about a consent agenda. But order of meeting. So, I mean, this talks about the use of a consent agenda, and the MSBA model policies for construction of agenda has two options: consent agenda or non-consent agenda. And so this is actually a combination of those both, right, Emily? So, because we use partially not a consent agenda, partially a consent agenda. So, but then it adds the clarity of how that works. So you explain how you use a consent agenda, why you use a consent agenda, when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. And again, this goes to concerns in the management assessment and adds a lot of clarity, in my opinion.
So Matt, do we have this? I don't.
I'll resend it to you.
Oh, okay.
There was an email, it is contained, there's a zip drive, there's a zip file of everything that MSBA recommended.
Okay.
Like they literally went through their policy and lined some stuff out, and then this is their explanation document.
So the document that I have at home with the highlights would probably have all of this.
Maybe, this was from 2022.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking about different things.
Yes, that's a
This-
different thing.
This we circulated at our last meeting. Actually, you weren't here the last meeting.
Okay.
So we talked about these two things.
Okay, but this is the one that we're focusing.
Right.
Change the shape of our meetings.
So we probably need a better title than agendas. I don't know if we're replacing two different, but I don't know what it should be.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, a better title. I just had agendas, but we're replacing the methods of operation and the construction of agenda. Or maybe,
So we wouldn't call it board meeting agenda with standing items? As our
So
policy?
the MSBA policy that's modeled off is BDDB. It's a combination of 1B and 2B, and that title is agendas.
Okay. So then would this be for work session, special meetings, board meetings?
This is for board meetings. There is another So what we're talking about. So there's another policy. And this is the one that they said replaces a bunch of policies. And that is MSBA BDA. And this just is called board meetings. And it talks about a quorum. It talks, the nice thing about this, it includes video conferences, Zoom, attending by Zoom, which we don't have currently in our policies. It talks about how you vote, talks about the meeting notice, talks about the regular board meetings, special board meetings, talks about electronic participation. So that's MSBA BDA. No, so we're talking about the agenda, which is BDDB. That's what we're talking about. And then there's another bylaw that talks about meetings, and that covers all meetings. It may need a little tweak because it doesn't talk about work sessions. It talks about special meetings. It talks about regular meetings. Yeah, and it talks about voting. It talks about electronic participation when everybody's virtual, when some people are virtual, which is probably the most important part of all that. But we'll put that on somebody's list to come back with. But at this point, because we want to start with this new agenda in March.
Right, because the next meeting will be a work session. And so since there's no quote unquote guidance, we're
Yeah.
gonna make sure we use.
So let's put adoption of policy or agendas on the next work session. We'll introduce this as amended. Because we do need to add some annotations on the bottom about what this is replacing and what we adopted. And then we'll do it at the work session. We'll do our first meeting like that at the regular meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So in the meantime, someone is working on standing items for a work session.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably like, what do we want work sessions to be?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what do we want work sessions to be?
I think that's gonna be something that should be part of the retreat. That's something you're not gonna be able to figure out now. It wouldn't help to try to make a transition like that when you're going into new board members. I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands what you're hearing from Vice President Davis and the chair of this committee. Guys probably got about 2 more months and he won't be here. He won't be the chair. So then what's going to happen? Because we were faced with just what he said. We were working diligently getting the bylaws updated in the beginning, and then it stopped. So the goal is going to be, how do we ensure that this process is continuing on?
Yeah.
So
So
I
I
will
guess at
wait.
some point, there's a discussion has to be made about work sessions
Exactly.
and what is the point.
Right, right.
It might be that it is for the introduction of consent agenda items.
Well, that's absolutely right.
Right.
And so that has, I think, traditionally been what the hope was. That's why previously consent agenda items for the next meeting were posted so at this last meeting that we had on Tuesday, you would have had the consent agenda items for March already available.
Exactly.
And we lost that over the last year. We
Because
lost
then-
that cadence.
Because then at the work session, you will have items pertaining to that
Right.
presented and discussion talked about or whatever.
So you would have an entire 2 weeks to review the the documents for the consent agenda and you would discuss that at the work session. And so that would be a good part, like if there are work session items that you want to present on. You know, so for example, if there's one of these things where we had all of the new partners, the work session would be a great opportunity to do that and discuss it and discuss that process.
Okay, so,
But you have to have that information in time for the work session.
okay,
And that's what we've lost.
so we can make that the focus of the agenda for the work session. That is for the introduction of consent agenda items
Introduction and discussion.
and discussion. And then anyone that is on the consent agenda will have an opportunity to explain so that the next time it can be voted on at the actual meeting.
Right. In the work session, you
Right.
know, like you got the questions, you're going over whatever questions you need, whatever items you want to talk about. But the big ticket items, mostly that's where you will have those presenters there to go over it. This is what, like T-Mobile. Like if you notice, they talked about it, it was on a consent agenda, but at the work session, they actually came and did the whole presentation.
Mhm.
Then when it comes to the next board meeting, it's time to vote. Pretty much you already know, the board members already know what that item is because they've had the opportunity to ask the questions, go over whatever.
Thank you.
And, you know, when we were looking at the sample agendas,
Mhm.
a lot of those school districts said, consent agenda items have already been discussed in committee. And we're
Mhm.
like, well, how would we ever do that? I guess that's the solution. Consent agenda items have already been discussed in the work
Work
session
session, yeah.
by the committee as a whole.
Mhm.
Okay.
One thing relevant to President Cousins, saying that you're not gonna be here, we can go ahead and make a schedule of governance meeting topics, right? And be like, we're gonna meet every 2 weeks and this is what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And even though, we might all have kids at urgent care, we can still, maybe we missed that meeting, but we know that there's something coming and it's not.
Yeah. And if you still want me to help as a citizen and taxpayer, I mean, that's allowable too. You know, I'm not moving yet.
If you want to
Okay.
take a break though, we completely understand.
Okay.
How
all
are
right.
we on time?
Well, all right. Do we want to just for clarity, take a vote on the, we'll just say the revised agenda bylaw that we will, formulate the changes we've discussed and introduce it for a vote at the work session in March.
So that I am clear
Yes.
on what the next steps are. That means that we are going to take this information,
Mhm.
insert this in here, and then be prepared to adopt this as a policy.
Yes, so where it says the agenda order shall be as follows if possible, colon.
Mhm.
We will remove from the parentheses all the
Mhm.
way down to the word adjournment and insert the board meeting agenda format document, starting with standing items through the bullet, a motion to adjourn the meeting will be made.
So this is what you're gonna be making. Okay.
And the only other thing that we need to do, I think, and we may need to talk to Mr. Schultz about this. We're gonna have to add, or maybe we even talk to MSBA about it, or have Mr. Schultz talk to MSBA about it. We're gonna have to add at the bottom of this, the
Policy number.
the citations to previous, what we've changed. And we're gonna have to either add a number to this at this point. Because I know the finance policies, we've gone with the MSBA letters.
Mhm.
So we also could go with the MSB letters and a number, knowing that we're gonna take the number off hopefully at some point.
Okay.
Okay,
Ms. Vaughn, are you clear?
Yes, and I think when I was writing it, if I put anything in italics, it doesn't have to stay in italics. It was just like, this is my adding something on. But I think it's fine to have it. And the last line about desiring to be included on the agenda, I think it refers to the right bylaw. And the policy is on the website somewhere, so that last piece in italics needs to go.
Yeah, it's not in where it should be, but it's there.
I thought I saw that in our policy.
In my,
It exists.
Yeah.
It's just hard to find.
so, okay, we're also going to remove,
It talks about the way to get on the agenda
Mhm.
in our policy.
so we're just gonna remove updated policy not on the website. I'm fine with the other part you put in the, I think that's excellent. Okay, so I will make a motion to recommend the revisions to the agendas bylaw pursuant to the changes we've discussed to the full board. Make a motion to recommend to the full board the agendas bylaw pursuant to the changes that we have discussed in this meeting.
Second.
Been moved by the chair, seconded by the co-chair, Ms. Hubbard. All those in favor?
I
Any opposed? The motion carries by acclamation. Okay. MSBA policy project update.
So the policies have been approved. They were approved at the February 11th board meeting. And they have been sent back to MSBA so that they can number them and put them on the website. I do have a phone call today at 5 p.m. with MSBA. And the goal was to have them posted by February 19th.
Are they going to put them on?
Diligence.
Okay, so we're gonna set up the policy portion of that, and finance will be the first part.
Yes.
Is there anything else in that? What's this?
The other
DLCA?
thing is there will be a link to our current policies that will take them to diligence.
So if you go to policies, it'll say, so they'll take the finance ones off the current one and say, because we're only gonna have, we're only
don't-
gonna have the finance ones on diligence,
We,
now, right?
right, we don't have current finance. They're mixed, they're mixed all over the place. There's not one that just says all finance policies.
There's no D series.
Right.
So the ones that we're eliminating with their number,
Mhm.
we're gonna take that off the website and say for finance policies, go to diligence.
There will be a link that will take them to diligence.
Yeah, but like, so,
Do you see finance in there? No,
oh, we already took it off.
no, we didn't take anything.
Oh, they're like business and non-instructional
Yes,
operations.
exactly.
Got it.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It doesn't specifically say finance.
So like policy 3160s, SLPS fund balance policy, are we taking that off?
Yes.
Okay. So the 3 series, some of them may still exist because they're not actual finance policies we reviewed.
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Schultz has a handle on all this?
So we're gonna be talking at 5
Okay.
o'clock to talk about what that needs to look like,
Okay.
because that means that we
Got
have to go through, because typically you would just have like 4,000 series would be all finance. Everything related to finance would be in that series, but that's not the way ours works. So the easiest thing to do would be a search, and anywhere we see anything that has to do with finance policy, we would insert the link that just takes them to our new policy.
I bet that MSBA has a handle on what is gone and what isn't.
Okay,
would be my guess,
okay.
based on the stuff that we got initially. So that may be, hopefully that'll be a quick and easy phone call. This DLCA policies are something supposed to do on
Okay,
this?
so wait a minute.
Okay, we're not there.
Did you capture what we're doing? Okay, can you share with me what we're doing?
So we are going to go into everything that currently has a finance, but we're also getting with MSBA. Everything that we have finance, we want to link that to where they can see those policies in our diligent community. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Correct.
So only policies will only go to diligent when they're new.
When they're new.
Great.
Eliminating confusion.
Correct.
And if anybody's seen, hopefully this is how it works, but I've seen the demo and it's really nice because it actually has, right when you look at the policy, it kind of like a tracking almost.
Yes.
Anything else on the policy projects and the finance policies?
That's it.
And do we need to discuss this or? Okay. Any old business?
Whistleblower.
The whistleblower policy has been, is in a draft form. It has been revised. I forwarded it last week to Dr. Borachade as well as to Dr. Berry in HR, just for their review and if they had any comments. The next step would be for our legal counsel to review it and ensure that it is in line with the regulations that apply to whistleblower. And Dr. Borachade, has that been forwarded?
There was a question that was emailed back and I didn't see a response to that just yet.
I haven't received an email response from, was it from you or Dr. Berry?
It was from me. We can talk about it.
Okay, because again, I thought we were waiting for it to go to legal counsel. And then once we get a response from legal counsel,
Next step.
it can be approved or presented to this body
Mm-hmm.
for review and adoption and approval by the board at the following meeting. What we'd like to do is have trainings, and I've talked with professional development, Dr. Baird, in professional development for all of the employees, as well as a version of it put in Vector for parents,
For the
students,
public, yeah.
for the public, and for that to be done before its effective date, which is hopefully going to be July 1.
And that's great. And then in terms of what we kind of discussed last time, are we thinking that maybe there's a technological solution that will go along with that or?
Oh, definitely,
Okay.
but that will, because most software that you actually use to conduct that type of activity, it will have an implementation timeframe. So that most likely won't happen until the 26, 27 school year, not the 25, 26 school year. So we'll utilize the manned process that we have currently, ensuring that the appropriate departments here in the central office are aware that they will have concerns flowing to them for resolution as of July 1st. But then while that's happening, we'll be looking for the technology solution that we can hopefully utilize to not only handle whistleblower complaints, but also a compliance platform as well.
Great.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any questions before I turn my mic off?
Any other old business? I did just want to bring out, this isn't totally old business for this committee, but kind of relevant. Especially seeing you, Dr. Hubbard. We had in our, I think our last audit committee meeting, which I don't even think you had started yet, talked about in conjunction with some of the changes in the finance policies that talked about the audit committee, that we needed to redo the committee description for the board. And so we had circulated some examples to the audit committee. Mr. G got back to me with his preference. And there was one or two changes that he suggested. So I just need to take a look again at that. But I just wanted to give an update on that. And you had asked me about that as well, that would help. So that's a sort of a crossing both committees there, but
Thank you.
okay, so our next meeting would be, if there's not any other old business, we said the 28th at noon. And so we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.